I am Carrie. I'm in my late 30s and work as an office lady while also helping out at my family's liquor store. Until 6 p.m. on weekdays, I work as an office lady, and after returning home, I assist with the accounting and management of the family liquor store. Back in the day, our liquor store was very prosperous, supplying alcohol to hotel banquet halls, local bars, restaurants, and various other places. In our neighborhood, there were no other liquor stores, so we were able to operate our business with no rivals or issues. However, in recent years, restrictions on serving times and other factors have dramatically reduced alcohol consumption. Not only banquets, but even some bars stopped serving alcohol at night. Naturally, this brought severe financial difficulties to our family business. Being the eldest daughter, and with my younger sister Amy already married, I was the one striving hard to turn the business around. Moreover, my parents' accounting was sloppy. We already had debts, and when the business began to decline, my parents continued their traditional methods, unknowingly letting the debt grow massively, leading us to the brink of bankruptcy. Nevertheless, due to my father's wish not to close down the liquor store, I, who had been living alone, decided to move back home 2 years ago. However, just running the liquor store wouldn't be enough to pay off our debts, so I chose to keep my current job while assisting with the family business. On weekdays, when I finish work and come home, my father would greet me at the shop's open shutter with his favorite drink in his hand.
Ah, you're finally back.
Dad, have you been drinking again?
These bottles won't sell just sitting here. I might as well drink them.
From his smell and slurred speech, it was obvious that he drank a lot. Dad, please stop drinking the stock. Raising his voice, he replied,
A daughter who can't even get married shouldn't be lecturing me.
He then went inside the house. I cleaned up the messy store and started working on the books. My dinner time, after wrapping up the day's work for the liquor store, is usually past 9 p.m. Even though I'm used to it, I'm still hungry. With both parents already asleep, I head to the kitchen, prepared some porridge, and then prepared breakfast for the next morning. For breakfast, my mother prefers toast, while my father prefers porridge, so I prepare both of their meals daily. And that's how my day ends. On weekends, when I finally get a day off, I'd love to sleep in until at least 10 a.m. But by 8 a.m., my mother forcefully wakes me up. Hey, hurry up and warm up your father's soup. What? Why can't you do it? Why should I do the housework when you're here? Just get up already. My mother seems to think I'm some kind of maid. Indeed, I've always been meticulous and loved cooking and cleaning, so I naturally took the lead in helping with household chores. But when I was in high school, my mother came to rely solely on me for everything from taking care of my younger sister to all the household tasks. Tired of this situation, I got a job right out of high school and got the job I have now. The job was very challenging for me in my teens, and I felt like giving up many times. But each time I was helped and supported by my seniors at work. After all, I was woken up in the morning without a good night's sleep, and after finishing my chores, I went straight to work at the liquor store. From the beginning, when the business began to lean, I have been shouldering my parents' debts, which amounted to $30,000 per year. Frankly, it is not an easy amount. I've made significant savings, so my cosmetics are from dollar stores. My lunch is always a homemade lunch. I also minimized the use of heating up meals, trying my best to save on utility bills. Then I started to work on revitalizing our family business. At first, I thought that merely distributing alcohol directly to the stores weren't enough. I asked my father if I could do something with the internet, but he said,
The way we've always done things is the best way. It's not my fault, it's the world's fault.
While I was busy thinking about the store, my mother would keep pushing household chores onto me with questions like, Isn't lunch ready yet? Have you hung out the laundry? With all this work on the house, there was no time to think about how to rebuild the business and take action, and we ended up being behind the curve. Eventually, after putting in a lot of time, I started an online business, primarily selling unique and hard-to-find liquors from our store. Given the various restrictions and the difficulty of moving around in the world, this treasure hunt style of online business proved successful, and our business began to prosper. Concurrently, the mention of our store's name online brought more customers to our physical store, and my free time became even more limited. It was tough to be so busy and not have any time for myself, but I persevered, sparing no moment, all to reduce my parents' debts. Finally, we reached a point where my parents could sustain themselves. Amy has a baby in her belly. That's wonderful. Isn't it your first grandchild? As I expressed my joy, my mother frowned and said, That's why you should leave this house. What? As I stared at my mother for a few moments, not understanding what she was saying, my father, who was listening to my mother and I's conversation over drinks, said,
We're going to live with Amy and her husband, so I'm telling you to pack up your stuff and leave.
What? But I came back to this house for the both of you. Both of them wouldn't listen to my pleas. My sister has always been a free spirit, never helping around the house. Even though she went to a junior college wanting to become a childcare worker, she dropped out just a few months later saying, I got tired of college. After that, she continued to live off the money sent by our parents. This continued even after she got married. Apparently, her husband didn't have a stable job either, so the two of them lived on the money from our parents and their part-time jobs. Yet, they lived quite lavishly, frequently going on trips. I was somewhat aware of this situation but chose to turn a blind eye. Even when I was suddenly told to leave the house, I was too busy every day to find a new place. I begged my parents to at least wait 2 months and started looking for a place, putting my liquor store work on hold. A few days into this, I got a call at my workplace from my father.
Carrie, what the hell are you doing? The store's too busy. Come back right now.
I'm at work now. Ask Amy and her family to help. Annoyed by my father, who said I should leave the house but then selfishly tried to push his work onto me, I said that and hung up the phone. A few minutes later, Carrie, it's your father on the phone again. Again? I'm really sorry for the inconvenience. As I picked up the phone, my father repeated the same things and eventually started yelling at me.
Carrie, you can leave early today if you need to.
Though I still had work to do, I didn't want to cause any more inconvenience to my coworkers due to my father's calls, so I decided to leave early that day. When I arrived at my family's liquor store, I found my father drinking alcohol, even though the store was still open. Really? Drinking instead of working? I was infuriated seeing him like that. When I confronted him about his drinking, he explained,
Tasting the alcohol is essential to know the product. Just do your work and keep quiet.
Realizing there was no point in arguing with a drunk, I silently started my work at the store. From then on, I juggled my job, the store, household chores, and house hunting, resulting in an insanely busy schedule. One day, because of this intense routine, I felt dizzy at work, and before I knew it, I found myself in a hospital bed. I passed out and hit my head on the corner of the desk. Touching my head, I felt the bandages wrapped around it.
It gave us quite a scare. How are you feeling now? Better?
Tears formed in my eyes due to the kindness of my coworker. Over the past few years, I hardly received any kindness from anyone. No one appreciated me for all the work I did at the store and back at home. My alcoholic father and self-centered mother had pushed me to the edge mentally. My coworker saw me like this and said,
You've been working so hard. But you know, soon you won't have to do anything at home, right? Let's take it easy from now on.
I thanked my coworker for being there for me. I thought I'll be leaving my family home soon. Just a little bit more to endure. This gave me a renewed sense of determination. Eventually, I found a house and began preparations to move out. However, my parents nagged that since my sister and her husband would be moving in, I should clean everywhere around the house. Why don't you handle it yourselves? I'm not going to be involved anymore. To my response, which they didn't expect, my parents looked a bit surprised.
What's with that attitude? We'll be relieved to be rid of someone like you.
Despite working so hard all this time for my parents, I was dumbfounded at their lack of gratitude for everything I had done. Once I finished moving out, my sister and her husband promptly moved into my parents' home. Finally, I was free from my toxic parents. On weekdays, I went to work and returned home before 8 p.m. On weekends, I could sleep in, go for walks, shop, and truly enjoy my free time like never before. A month later, an unexpected phone call gave me a reason to laugh. What about this month's loan payment? Suddenly, I received an angry phone call from my mother. Huh? Loan? Isn't that the one you two created? After all the effort I put into reviving their liquor store and doing household chores, who was it that kicked me out for their convenience? I spoke so fast without giving my mother a chance to respond. But then I heard my sister's voice from the background. Sis, please help. I had no idea about the debt. I thought the liquor store was thriving, and if I returned, I'd lead a comfortable life. That is what they were saying to me. There's no way life is that easy. I could only laugh at my selfish family, my parents, and even my sister and her husband. There are 4 of you adults. You should be able to manage money. I could hear my mother and sister arguing over the phone. They were blaming each other, shouting terrible things at each other. They were so into it that they seemed to forget that they were on the phone with me. Listening to their conversation, I felt very disappointed, even though they were my own family. At the same time, my desire to no longer be involved with them grew even greater. My father, who would rather drink than work, my mother, who didn't want to do household chores, my sister, who hated working and wanted to continue depending on our parents, and her husband, who also didn't want to work. With these 4 people gathered together, there's no way that just the earnings from liquor store could cover the monthly debt repayment nearing few $1,000s, plus the living expenses of 4 adults. Frustrated with how irresponsible they were, I told them, I'm not involved anymore. Oh, by the way, I'm getting married soon and planning to move abroad in a few months, so don't rely on me. After telling them this, my mother went on about how I must have lots of money and that I shouldn't go abroad, but instead return home. Annoyed, I hung up the phone. After that, I did not answer any of my family's calls, although they kept on calling me many times. The next day, I changed my cell phone number and asked my coworkers not to transfer the call to me if anyone from my family contacted me at work. And I was able to distance myself from my family with the help of those around me. A few months later, before I left the US, I heard from a relative that the liquor store's online business I had built was also in trouble, with shipping delays and delivery of the wrong products, because everyone wasn't doing their jobs properly as expected. The store received so many phone calls with inquiries and became even busier. Then word of the sloppy management spread as rumor, and the company's reputation fell, resulting in a drop in revenues. Simultaneously, rumors spread about my father's daily drunken activities in the actual shop, and the store was labeled as a place filled with drunks, which slowed the flow of customers. The family liquor store, which had recovered enough to make a living, was forced out of business in the end. Then the 4 people who had lost their jobs could not even find any jobs, and they lost the means to earn money, and they had to leave the shop and the house they had used as collateral because they could not repay their debts. The 4 people who had nowhere else to go tried to contact me, but thanks to all my relatives who took my side and kept my whereabouts a secret, I was able to avoid any contact from my family. Despite my sister being pregnant, all 4 of them remained unemployed. The 4 of them argued every day about how to make a living, and since none of them took the initiative to go to work, they ended up dumping their responsibilities on each other and had a huge fallout. I ended up marrying my coworker and transferred to an overseas branch. My husband was that one coworker who stayed by my side at the hospital when I collapsed. We had been close for a while, but we grew much closer after that incident. Around that time, our company had proposed for both of us to transfer to an overseas branch, and with various coincidences aligning, our relationship bloomed and started to date. And eventually, we've decided to get married. Having spent so much time trying to rebuild my family business, I haven't had much time for myself. But from now on, I want to cherish our time as a couple, working hard in both our jobs and our household chores. For years, I gave everything for my family, but they took it for granted and never tried to help or contribute, always relying on others. Well, it's karma to those who only think of their own benefit and don't put in any effort at all. I am grateful to those who saved me. Using my family as a lesson to be never like them, I want to live a joyful life, considering not just my own needs, but also the needs of others.
My name is Wendy Collins. I've been married for a year when I got the call that my mother-in-law had an accident. She survived, but was left wheelchair-bound, and it was my kind father-in-law who supported her. I did visit the in-laws' house occasionally, but my father-in-law, worn out from work and caregiving, fell ill and passed away suddenly. Unable to leave my mother-in-law alone, I offered to move in with her. Hey, we can't just leave Mom alone at the house. Then what do you expect us to do? Why don't we live there with her? Stop joking. I absolutely refused to live in that old, dark house. George liked new things and preferred living in an apartment. Thus, despite being the one who should care for his parents, he didn't want to return to his parental home after marrying. I considered inviting my mother-in-law to live with us in the apartment, but it seemed impossible due to the cramped space. Eventually, after much persuasion, we started living in his parents' house. No matter how hard it was for me or how exhausted I became, George kept making demands. You said you'd take care of my mom. You should do your job properly. So, when George came home from work and dinner wasn't ready, he would yell, "Why isn't there any food? It's your job." Fine. I'll eat out. He would take money and go out to eat alone, despite it being clear that preparing meals on time was impossible due to caregiving. My husband was selfish. When he came back from eating out and found the room wasn't cleaned, he would get irritated and lash out again. What have you been doing? Don't use caregiving as an excuse for being lazy. It's normal to clean up before your husband comes home. What kind of housewife are you if you can't even do that? You're really useless. How could he say such things? But arguing back would lead to a fight, which my mother-in-law, resting in the next room, would overhear. I wanted to avoid making her sad. I had no choice but to try to keep George in a good mood by cleaning up as quickly as possible. He would also get mad if the futon wasn't laid out or if the beer wasn't chilled, sending me out to buy it even in the middle of the night. I hoped he would help at least on his days off, but he would say, "Why should I do such things?" and then go out. My mother-in-law would apologize to me, feeling sorry. "It's not your fault, Mom. Please, don't apologize." We had such conversations countless times, and my mother-in-law always felt indebted to me. Our married life was sad. Because something might happen to my mother-in-law at night, I slept in her room, which meant my husband and I had no intimate moments in our first year of marriage. Although we wanted children, I had no confidence in raising them with no one to help. Meanwhile, my husband started coming home later and later. Eventually, he didn't come home at all some days. I thought, is he cheating on me? But in the current situation, I had no time to blame him. It was better to focus on getting through each day than to worry about unnecessary things. Then, one day, my husband came back with a woman. He was 30, and she seemed to be in her mid-20s. I was shocked when he said he wanted a divorce. Divorce. With a mother-in-law who needed care, what was he planning to do by getting a divorce? I don't want to be tied down to this old-fashioned house. So, I'll give it to you. Saying that, he handed me the divorce papers. What about your mom? You can take care of her. You said you wanted to take care of the old lady, so we moved here. I was against it from the start. But she's your mom. Even if she is my mom, I hate old things. I'm giving it to you, so be grateful. I felt only sadness at my husband's words, treating his mother like an object. I'm going to start a new life with her. You do whatever you want. So, hurry up and sign. But I don't have an income. How am I supposed to live? That's your problem. It's your fault for not working. I can't work because I'm caregiving. My dad worked while caregiving. Despite that leading to his father's collapse, my husband thought of nothing. Okay. I signed the divorce papers. Good. Now we can get married anytime. The woman looked happy, snuggling up to my husband. I felt a terrifying emptiness at the thought of him seriously abandoning his family, but I didn't want to cling to such a man. Take care of the old lady, will you? With that, my husband left the house. It felt as if a hole had opened up in my heart. What was the point of everything I had done until now? It wasn't the sadness of being left by my husband that overwhelmed me, but a sense of emptiness. Then, I heard the sound of a bell ringing from the back room. It was the bell I had placed by my mother-in-law's pillow, for her to ring if she needed anything. I gathered my spirits and, pausing to smile before entering, rushed to my mother-in-law's side. Wendy Collins kept telling herself that she couldn't show her mother-in-law a sad face. I thought, but how do I explain? Being abandoned by her own son must be too shocking. Mom, what's wrong? He left, didn't he? It seemed her mother-in-law understood what had happened. Feeling sorry, yet frustrated at being unable to do anything, Wendy approached the bed, wondering what to say. However, her mother-in-law said, "Maybe we should sell this house first," and laughed. Huh? She was so taken aback that she could hardly find the words to reply. Don't be so surprised. I always thought he would leave this house eventually. And that you would stay. But it's hard to care for me in this house, isn't it? So, let's sell this house and move somewhere more comfortable. But Mom, even though we have this land, I think it will fetch very little. It's an old house, after all. I know. And if we sell the house, we'll have nowhere to live. Don't worry. Leave it to me. Brightly saying so, her mother-in-law began making calls immediately, actually starting the process of selling. At the same time, she decided to move into a luxury senior apartment. Don't you think it's a nice place? The rooms are spacious, and it's all barrier-free. Getting out was difficult with the steps at the entrance, but here, there are no steps at the entrance, so it's easier for you, right? Plus, there's an open-air bath. I can't use it, but you can enjoy it. And there's a theater room. A fancy cafe too. I'm looking forward to having coffee together. Mom, this place. Look, the security is perfect. 2 women can live here worry-free. But it's incredibly expensive. How can we afford this? Don't worry. Why did you choose such an expensive place? It was way too expensive. There was no way we could afford it. Despite being reassured not to worry, I couldn't help but feel anxious. I wondered why my mother-in-law was insistent on such an expensive property. I was holding back until he was gone. If we moved here, he would be pleased and surely bring another woman. I wanted to make things easier for you, who are going through a lot with the caregiving. So, I looked around and found this place. Indeed, bathing her was hard labor. Taking her out was difficult because of the wheelchair. I knew I was young now, but I would age too. I had considered what to do when that time came. It would be nice if he helped. But he doesn't help at all. It was as if her mother-in-law read her mind. So, I wanted to gift you something for all your hard work for me. Moved by my mother-in-law's kindness, my tears flowed. Despite the hardships, I was grateful for my mother-in-law's warmth. I regretted marrying such a man, but was thankful for meeting such a kind mother-in-law. With the move decided, our new life began, more comfortable than imagined. The lack of steps made caregiving easier for both. The beds moved automatically, allowing my mother-in-law to get up on her own. She could move around the apartment in her wheelchair freely. But purchasing such a luxurious apartment was beyond surprising. I wondered what my mother-in-law was thinking. When asked how this was possible, my mother-in-law smiled and answered, "Actually, my husband left us quite a fortune. With not much life left, why not spend it lavishly?" We laughed. Half a year later, enjoying cafes and theaters, George contacted me. "Hey, how's Mom?" "Who is this?" "It's me, your husband." "Ah, my ex-husband." "We're living together, but what about it? What happened to the family home?" "The family home?" "Yeah, I went there recently, and the place is just an empty lot now." "Oh, we sold it." "You sold it? What the hell are you doing?" "Can't help it. Mom decided to sell it." "Mom sold it?" "Yes. Selling it means you've got nowhere to live." "Oh, you're worried even after abandoning your family?" "But don't worry, we're living just fine." "So, what did you do with the money from the sale?" At that moment, my mother-in-law took the phone from me. "Who may this be?" "Mom." "Are you okay?" "Oh, who might you be?" "Only my daughter-in-law, Wendy, is allowed to call me Mom." "So, who are you? What are you talking about?" "It's me, your son George." "My son, huh?" "My son abandoned his family for some woman and ran away." "Are you that George?" "I'm sorry. Apologies now won't do us any good." "Hey, Mom, you sold the house, right? What did you do with the money?" "Don't tell me Wendy is holding on to it. That's none of your business." "Actually, I'm in a bit of a bind right now. I really need money." "Oh, is that so? So, could you lend me some?" "Lend you? What did you do?" "I have debts." "Debts, huh? You and that woman you ran off with should pay them back together." "Well, the debt was something we decided on together. Deciding together to get into debt? Ridiculous. Wendy would never let something like that happen. I had no choice. I bought a car on installment because I didn't have the money. I thought I could manage as long as I paid a fixed amount each month. But life got tough. When we ran out of money for living expenses, I ended up borrowing more. It felt like it was okay to borrow as long as the payments were fixed. I kept buying things I wanted on installment, but then I realized no matter how much I paid, the debt only grew. When I called to ask why my debt wasn't decreasing, they told me the high interest rates meant that if I only paid $20,000 a month, the interest would accumulate, and the next month I'd owe the principal plus more interest, creating a snowball effect. What a snowball. You're foolish. I didn't expect things to get this bad. I tried to make a lump sum payment, but the interest just kept growing. It's really tough. Tough, you say? We're family, aren't we? Help me out. When it was tough for us, you did nothing. Instead, you left everything to your wife and cheated. Why should I help someone like that? I'm apologizing, aren't I? Just lend me the money you got from selling the house. No way, I've already used it for moving expenses. You're still living with Wendy, right? How are you managing? Wendy works, doesn't she? You must have some money. George was persistent, trying every trick in the book. But even though I work, it's only to take care of my mother-in-law, and I get paid as a housekeeper. Essentially, it's all expenses for my mother-in-law. That's ridiculous. How can you live like that? I don't need to tell you that. Come on, help me out somehow. I have no intention of helping you. After saying that, my mother-in-law hung up the phone. Damn, that old hag. After being rejected and hung up on, George was evidently furious. Hey, there must be money. If she can afford to have her ex-daughter-in-law work as a housekeeper, there's definitely money. There might be, but what can we do about it? Just take it. Go there and steal the passbook or something. Ah, right. That's a son's privilege. Deciding on their plan, the two somehow found out our address and showed up at our apartment complex. What? This luxury apartment? We're struggling, and they're living the high life? What a wicked woman. They tried to enter the apartment but couldn't because of the tight security. Residents have to unlock the doors from the inside. We can't get in like this. Seeing their faces on the monitor, my mother-in-law and I didn't answer the call or unlock the door. Realizing they couldn't easily get in, they tried everything to enter. But it was no use. Eventually, giving up, they called us from outside the building. Hey. Where are you now? At home. Living in this luxury apartment while I'm suffering. Why do you get to live in such a nice place? It's none of your business where I live. You never helped with the caregiving, did whatever you wanted, found another woman, and left. And now you're complaining because you're suffering? That's rich. Shut up. Let us live there too. No way. Told by my mother-in-law never to meet them under any circumstances, I decided to stand my ground. I'm not the same person I used to be. That house must have been bought by Mom, right? So what if it was? Then I have a right to live there too. This house was bought by my mother-in-law for me. She wanted to reward me for not complaining and working hard despite the difficulties of caregiving. You did nothing, remember? You left because you said you hated the old house and, apparently, old people too. What a thing to say. Ah, I was just tired at that time. It couldn't be helped. Which mouth is saying that? Tired from what? You never did anything around the house. I don't find your joke funny at all. But I really was tired. Tired from messing around with other women, maybe? That's not what being tired means. After all, you weren't the only one who was tired. Sorry. I just hated that house. If I could live in a beautiful luxury apartment like this, I'd help out this time. That's just an intention, isn't it? I am her son, after all. But Mom said not to let you in, right? After being abandoned, now you want a family reunion? Do you really think, after being abandoned like that, she would still consider you her child? You're being too naive. Hey, don't get so worked up. You're just stressed because you're doing everything alone, right? Taking care of someone alone is really tough. If you let me and my wife help, it would surely be easier. I'm fine on my own, thanks. There's no way you can handle everything alone. I can, thanks to this apartment. What the hell? Why are you the only one getting the sweet deal? That's just wrong. That way of thinking is wrong to begin with. Hey, it wouldn't hurt to let us in just a little. Just letting us in is enough. Or are you planning to hoard all of Mom's money for yourself? I won't let you do that. Suddenly, George's wife joined the conversation. Realizing this was going nowhere good, I decided to contact the police. I thought it would cause less trouble. The police arrived promptly after a report from the luxury apartment and warned the two to leave. A few days later, George contacted me again. Hey, about Erin. Who's Erin? My wife. Oh, so that was her name. Yeah, she took all the furniture while I was at work and ran away. Oh, how ambitious. All that was left in the room was a divorce paper and a note saying she couldn't deal with a poor man. Wow, impressive. She chose a poor man herself. It's all because you're hoarding Mom's money. Back to that? I'm not hoarding anything. Mom does what she wants. I'm just a housekeeper. No, if you had let me in, this wouldn't have happened. You wanted to search the house and steal Mom's bank book, right? Do you think I don't know that? I don't trust you anymore, so no matter what you say, it's impossible. It's your fault for calling the police. You were making a scene outside. It was unavoidable. You don't even reflect on your actions. Now, I'm all alone. And how is that my problem? Can't we start over? Huh? You just got divorced, right? Yeah, but men can remarry immediately after divorce, unlike women who have to wait 6 months. So, if I submit this divorce paper, I can remarry you right away. You're happy, right? Happy about what? Why would I want to remarry someone who just got divorced? If we remarry, I'm sure Mom will pay off my debts. Then, my debts would be easily cleared. Isn't that a great idea? Great. Why should we pay off the debt you made with that woman? How much more do you plan to make Mom suffer? No, I didn't mean to. Your idea leaves no room for any other interpretation. You just see things differently. I'm just thinking about making everyone happy. After all, I am her real son. Mom said blood relations aren't worth anything. What nonsense. Blood relations are the most important. If blood relations are so important, why did you abandon Mom so easily back then? Impossible. That's because... That's why your wife left you, right? No, that's not it. She said if things continued this way, we'd end up in trouble with the police or chased by debt collectors. So she left. So, she dumped you and left everything to you. Perfect. I never thought she'd divorce me and leave me with everything. Well, she was your wife, so it makes sense. A well-matched couple. Trying to be happy by herself, what a terrible woman. That's a boomerang. You were just like that. Too selfish, don't you think? I thought so. Selfish, self-centered, hopeless. That's why I hoped you'd go to hell. Yeah, I think so too. A woman like that should go to hell. We really get each other. We should remarry. Carefree or utterly selfish, that seems to be my ex-husband George's way. After being dumped by his wife, he's been scheming to remarry me to get his hands on my mother-in-law's money. You know, I have no intention of remarrying you. Why not? We were so in love when we were younger. I think that was a misunderstanding. So, you can forget about it. What a heartless woman. I was married to a heartless man, so I learned a thing or two. Come on, don't say that. Help me out, please. Sorry, but I'm off to the theater room to watch a movie with Mom. What? There's such a thing too? Yes, besides the theater room, there's also an open-air bath and a cafe. Luxury apartments are amazing, you know. So, I'm hanging up now. Let me in too. Please, I hate living in a cramped rental apartment. I want to live in a luxury apartment too. Talk to Mom for me, please. Okay, I'm going to block you now. Hey, Wendy. Damn. Wendy. You damn old hag. George was cursing until the very end, envious of the luxuries of the high-end apartment as the call ended. And I thought, serves you right. In the end, after being blocked by me, George tried contacting his mother. But she also lambasted him and blocked him. Despite being rejected by both his ex-wife and mother, George was desperate for salvation and tried to get into the apartment again. This time, he came prepared, disguising himself as a delivery man or a florist. Such admirable effort, if only he had shown it during our marriage, but it was too late. No matter the disguise, he was recognized and couldn't enter the apartment. Eventually, he started yelling and screaming in front of the monitor, prompting the building manager to deem it a disturbance and call the police. Thanks to that, George was taken away by the police to cool his head in a cell. With no one to pick him up, George named me, but being divorced and now a stranger, I refused. His mother's name came up, but she firmly declined due to her wheelchair and old age. Finally, after contacting several people, his boss came to pick him up, only to fire him for causing trouble. Burdened with debt and now unemployed, George tried to make ends meet with part-time jobs, but ended up in prison for attempting to steal money from a store register. As for me, I continue to live happily in the luxury apartment with my mother-in-law. Lately, I've become good friends with other seniors living in the same building, enjoying every day. I'm very happy now.
This house will be inherited by the eldest son and his wife. When I heard my husband's words, I thought he must be drunk. He's asking me to hand over the house, which is in my name, to our eldest son and his wife. Get out, old lady. The eldest son's wife burst into a laugh. I felt pity for myself, having paid the mortgage on this house for 5 years. Then, I'll move out. I accepted that declaration without argument and began packing silently. Only my grandchild looked at me with worried eyes. I must protect him at all costs. For his sake, I can't just let this go. I swore to take my revenge on them. I am Alyssa Williams, 60 years old. My husband, Michael, who is set to retire at the end of the month, and I have lived together as a married couple for 36 years. He seemed gentle at first, but a year into our marriage, his true nature began to show. Now I can't even remember the good times from when we first got married. I was hired as a full-time administrative employee at the headquarters of a caregiver business when I was 48 and am now responsible for the role of chief after 12 years. I earn a decent salary in a well-paying job. My monthly salary is about $1,870. And with biannual bonuses, my annual income is close to $40,000. But after paying the mortgage, there isn't much left. Hey, Alyssa, why are you skacking around? I told you there's a drinking party tonight and to prepare at least $300, didn't I? I'm leaving now. Do you want to embarrass me in front of my colleagues as I'm about to retire? As my husband adjusted his tie in the living room, his sharp voice reached me. I knew about the drinking party 3 days ago. But this was the first time I heard about needing $300. All I was told was to prepare some money for the drinking party in a very arrogant manner. I tried to put together all the cash I had, but it didn't reach $300. Does he not understand how much the house loan burdens our finances? I pay the entire monthly loan of $1,400, and he lives in that house as if it's his right. Listen, I heard about the money and the drinking party. But did you mention $300 before? What? $300 might not even be enough. Don't tell me you haven't prepared it. Even when I spoke with a tone of displeasure, my husband remained unfazed. When I told him I only had $130 at hand, his face changed with anger. This drinking party is to celebrate the retirement of Michael Williams, the chief. I'm the star of the event, and you think $130 is enough. Are you trying to put dirt on my face? Who does he think I'm doing this on purpose? If you appreciate me, you'd happily give me at least $670. Though he's retiring this month, he was only promoted to section chief in his mid-40s. I know this is the company's fair evaluation of him. And I can't believe that the company and his subordinates genuinely celebrate his retirement. But my husband genuinely believes it. Why do you think I let you work? If you can't even provide $300 for a drinking party where I'm the star, I should have just let you be a housewife, useless woman. I nearly retorted with, "Are you kidding me?" but held back. My husband didn't pass the loan screening when we wanted to buy a house 5 years ago. So we applied for a joint loan. He seems to have forgotten all about it. He was about to shout at me again when he suddenly went quiet. It seemed he didn't want to make a scene in front of Lucy, the eldest son's wife, who just entered the living room. She is 28. Wearing revealing clothes even in front of her father-in-law in his mid-60s. I recalled her short pants, which were hiked up high. Lucy, married to Jake, has been living with him. And I wish she'd dressed more appropriately in front of her father-in-law. Good morning. How are you off to work already at this hour? My husband, obviously smitten, jokingly massages the shoulder of his eldest son's wife. Lucy, you look pretty today as always. I wish my old lady here would learn something from you. The husband is comparing his young and beautiful 28-year-old wife, who knows precisely when to turn on her charm, with his 60-year-old wife. But I don't mind. Good morning, Lucy. Jake has already gone to work, so don't worry. I made sure he had breakfast. He said not to wake you up. The eldest son's wife yawns repeatedly and casually raises her hand, clearly looking down on me. I know. When I woke up, he wasn't in bed. Besides, I think Jake prefers the meals you make. The eldest son's wife's attitude is something she's gotten used to. But there's one thing I can't accept. I also fed Rachel. She ate well, brushed her teeth, and changed her clothes. She looked sleepy, so I laid her down in a quiet room. Rachel is Lucy's child from a previous relationship. A 5-year-old girl, unlike her flashy and standout beautiful mother. She has an ordinary, quiet demeanor fitting for a preschooler. I adore my granddaughter. Although not related by blood, I try to see her as a blessing. Since I have to work, I have to leave her in daycare. But once I retire in 5 years, I'd like to be more involved in her upbringing. Thanks for that. She probably likes you more than she likes me. I'll leave her in your care, all right? Lucy yawns repeatedly. It's hard not to get annoyed at her apparent indifference to her own daughter. She used to be a single mother. 2 years ago, Jake, working at an electronics store, fell in love at first sight with her while she was a short-term worker there. Rachel has become attached to me too, and I want to work hard as a husband and father. When my eldest son said this, I felt uneasy but decided it wasn't my place to intervene, and just nodded silently. I wondered if he, with limited romantic experience, could handle being a father to a young child. Children don't deserve any hardships due to the whims of adults. I don't want them to suffer or feel inconvenienced. So how about we live together for a while after the marriage? I can help with the little one. When her son told her his wife was delighted with the offer, she was overjoyed. But from day one of living together, the daughter-in-law would fall asleep on the sofa after emptying several cans of alcohol, leaving her then 3-year-old unattended. The daughter-in-law's reckless behavior and sheer audacity grew by the day. Amidst this, my husband continued to pamper his daughter-in-law, even when I asked him to be a little more considerate for the sake of our son. He scoffed at me. With a young, beautiful wife that Jake's completely smitten by. And even I'm a fan, you're just jealous, aren't you? No matter what miracle occurs, you can't compare to Lucy. My husband's mocking words made my anger swell. If I were just a bit younger, I wouldn't even think twice about crossing the line with Lucy just because she's my son's wife. He's such a despicable man. His character has become so off-putting. The daughter-in-law flaunts her sense of superiority to her. Don't get so upset. You're trying to compete with me at 60. You'll just embarrass yourself. Compete? That's a joke. Youth and aging are relative, and neither determines a person's worth. She's never felt inferior to her daughter-in-law. Grandma, I want some tea. A soft voice calls out, and the door to the room opens. The granddaughter, having taken a nap, appears. It is. Come here, let's use the new mug I bought yesterday. As I showed the little mug to my granddaughter, her face lit with delight. So cute. There are so many animals. Did Grandma buy them for me? The sight of her being entertained by the cartoon-like bear and giraffe designs rather than the tea is adorable. Do you remember that I promised to take you to the zoo next time? It seems like the cute animals visited you before that, Rachel. I gently stroked my joyful granddaughter's head. The girl, in high spirits, drinks her tea and finally notices her mother, engrossed in her smartphone on the sofa. It's Mom. Were you awake? Good morning. It hurts to see the young child carefully choose her words and tone. Ever since she started living in this house, it's evident that her sense of responsibility as a mother is fading. It's not that she dislikes her child. She just seems uninterested. She once mentioned marrying her former husband because she got pregnant. Out of pity, I've been actively taking care of the grandchild. Neither my husband nor my eldest son scolds her. On the contrary, they both, especially my husband, seem to take me for granted, as if I exist for this reason. I can sense daily from my husband, eldest son, and daughter-in-law that they keep me around for this very purpose. My eldest daughter, Natalie, who left because she didn't favor her father and brother, was right. Natalie, the eldest daughter, is 35, 2 years older than the eldest son. She was promoted to executive secretary just before we bought this house 5 years ago. She has been living on her own for 4 years, but she still checks up on me, visiting about twice a week. Also, she adores her young niece, and the little girl looks forward to seeing her aunt. I love Aunt Natalie. She's beautiful, kind, knows everything, can do anything, and tells me all sorts of stories. Rachel cherishes and praises her aunt respectfully. It wasn't her mother's upbringing that shaped her this way, but seemingly the influence of Lucy's parents, who supported her until she remarried. You're such a well-mannered girl, Rachel. I always compliment her for any little thing, and she always responds with a smile. Grandma and Grandpa taught me every day so I wouldn't embarrass them outside. I'm impressed by the upbringing of her grandparents when I see that the young Rachel turned out so well, while Lucy, raised under them, ignores all manners and rules. That night, without any preamble, my husband made a formal declaration in front of us. Jake, I've decided to transfer the house, currently under Alyssa's name, to you. The eldest son and his wife will inherit this house. Taken aback by these sudden words, I wondered if my husband was drunk. He wanted to hand over the house, which was under my name, to our eldest son and his wife. The daughter-in-law jumped off the sofa, running around the living room like a child. Too bad, Alyssa. We have to obey what your husband decides. Old hag like you should just leave LOL. Lucy smirked while looking into my face, then started laughing loudly. My eldest son just sat silently next to her. There was nothing more to say. I felt pathetic, having paid the house loan for 5 years. I guess I'll move out then. I quietly accepted this decision and began packing without a word. Only my granddaughter watched me with concerned eyes. I absolutely must protect her. For that reason, I couldn't just accept this silently. I vowed to take thorough revenge on my condescending husband, my eldest son's wife, and my eldest son, who stands there and watches. The next day was just a regular work day. During my lunch break, I received a call from Natalie. Mom, I saw your message about yesterday. What's all that about? Why would Dad say something like that? I could hear the anger in her voice over the phone. I received another message earlier from my husband. It basically says that he'd rather spend his retirement with the precious eldest son and his wife, giving them the house under my name, instead of living with a useless wife like me. I'll forward it to you later. Natalie was silent for a few seconds. Then she asked in a calm voice what I intended to do. It's okay to leave the property title in my name. For now, I'm staying at a business hotel. Would it be okay if I stayed with you for a while? There are 5 years until I retire, and I'll start thinking about the future soon. Natalie agreed. Come as soon as you can, and move in to live with us forever. Then, in a suppressed voice full of anxiety, she asked the next question. But Mom, aren't you the debtor of the house loan? Leaving the property title and the loan as they are, won't it be detrimental to you? Then she paused for a moment and repeated her words in her head. The smart Natalie quickly caught on and spoke cheerfully. Yo, I completely forgot. The house loan application started with you. But are you planning to use what I suggested at that time? It was lunch break, and not many people were around, so I laughed out loud. The eldest daughter also burst into laughter. Jake has forgotten about it. After all, I'm the one paying for it. Natalie couldn't stop laughing at what I just saw. Although it's a pity that I won't be able to see what happens up close. My husband, eldest son, and his wife should face reality. Upon returning home, Lucy sneered at me. Why are you back? Didn't your husband say? The house goes to the eldest son's family. This is already our home, so leave quickly. I wanted to say that the title is still in my name, but I remained silent. They should keep dreaming while they can. This goes for Lucy, my husband, and my son as well. That's the plan. I just came back to get some things. Even without being told, I'll leave. Oh, and please dispose of my bed. The eldest son's wife looked puzzled. Are we supposed to cover the disposal costs for the bed, even though it's not ours? I expected her to say that. Late at night, in front of all the family members, excluding Natalie and Raquel. I took out a thick envelope and placed it on the table. There's $2,000 inside. It's for disposing of the bed and chest of drawers. A copy of the estimate is included. Contact the contractor and pay them in cash from the $2,000 inside. The estimate is $1,500, so you can keep the rest. Lucy was holding back a malicious laugh. She probably thought it would be a loss to upset me further. I did a final check in my room to ensure I didn't forget anything. Then, my grandchild secretly appeared. I couldn't leave my grandchild, who looked more anxious than the day before. I left a formal note and left the house with Rachel. In the note, I wrote how there might be issues of custody, but I have properly arranged an environment to raise the child. But it seemed like my husband had not given any thought at all. I intended to continue paying my share of the loan in the form of deposits to the family, as I never wanted to trouble my eldest son. I'm sorry, Rachel. I took you without explaining. We'll live at Aunt Natalie's place for a while, but I promise I won't let anything upset you. In the taxi, my grandchild stared at my face and listened intently. Well, as long as you're there, Grandma, I'm fine. I'm sure I'll be okay at Aunt Natalie's house. Those words gave me courage. It's all right. I still have people who care about me and think of me. So I can win. Natalie told me she had a marriage proposal by the CEO she works for as a secretary last month. It happened when I was wondering how to tell that to my husband. They should realize, both my husband and eldest son, as well as his wife. I feel like happiness has come back, thanks to Natalie's help. I'm truly relieved about Rachel and your marriage. You found a wonderful partner. I'm proud of you, my daughter. Natalie laughed heartily, her cheeks turning red in embarrassment. I wondered why she wanted to move out when she became independent. Giving up on a stable family for men who can be oppressive. I thought you were naive when you left the house because of your brother and father. But I underestimated your wisdom back then, Natalie. Natalie always pointed out her dad's tyranny and the brother's thoughtlessness. However, they never seemed to take her words to heart. The door to revenge will open soon. The humiliations that my mother endured will be avenged. I'm looking forward to it. As Natalie predicted, half a month later, it seemed the day had finally arrived. Lucy came to Natalie's apartment, shouting angrily, "I know you are in there. Let me see the old lady." Natalie sneered and led Lucy to the room where I was waiting. Everything went as planned. "Oh my, do we have a guest? Nice to meet you." I deliberately spoke to Lucy in a slow, shaky voice, feigning extreme old age. With an unfamiliar look in my eyes. "Stop playing around, you old hag." Lucy was furious and tried to attack me, but Natalie calmly held her back. "This is how our mother is now. She might need to be admitted to the nursing home where she works. Do you intend to be violent to an elderly woman, even if she is your former mother-in-law?" Lucy was stunned, looking at Natalie and me. "So, is this old lady senile now?" The voice of Lucy trembled. "That will be determined after a diagnosis. It was a good thing I advised her to take out a parent-child loan 5 years ago. As of last month, she's finished her obligation as a debtor for the house loan. Lucy isn't very bright. She probably doesn't even know what a parent-child loan is and wouldn't understand its implications even after something happens. My mother's debt was always meant to end in 5 years. We arranged for the next 10 years to be on Jake, my younger brother. As long as you make the payments properly, your house won't be seized." The eldest daughter explained cheerfully, and the eldest son's wife collapsed to her knees. "We received the paperwork yesterday. Jake had forgotten that he had taken out a parent-child loan. My father-in-law had financial problems and couldn't pass the loan assessment. He's already retired, and it's irresponsible of Jake to leave everything to him. What should we do?" "Yes, financial troubles. My husband had secretly taken out loans and ended up causing a financial incident, which was why he couldn't pass the loan assessment. A grandchild, who had been hiding in Natalie's room, peeked out. "Rachel, were you here all along?" Lucy probably forgot about her daughter, whom she hadn't seen for half a month. They were probably having too much fun and didn't think about anything else. "It's been a while, Mom." Aunt Natalie explained everything to me so I could understand. "I'm going to live with Grandma and Aunt Natalie. The CEO who's marrying Aunt Natalie will be with us too. He told me we'd all live together in a new house and be a happy family. I don't need a mother who's been mean to Grandma anymore. Bye." The young daughter's condemnation left Lucy speechless. She tried to say something, but after 10 minutes, she still couldn't form the words. Natalie grabbed her arm to help her stand. "My mother and Rachel will be taken care of by me and the CEO, who will be my husband. You should be getting ready to work hard to support Jake." Natalie laughed joyfully and coldly threw words at Lucy. She seemed ready to escort her out of the apartment. "How was my senile act?" I said to Natalie as she sent off Lucy from the entrance, laughing. She laughed heartily. "Should I introduce you to a theater company? It was perfect." The grandchild came and sat beside me, clinging to my neck. "Is it really okay for me to stay? My mother made a mess of Grandma's house." I couldn't see her face, but I could hear her crying. "She's so dear to me. This child is my grandchild, and I've decided to make her happy. Rachel, you know you are Grandma's precious granddaughter. If you don't mind, please stay with me." A sob grew louder, and I pulled the small body close and hugged her tightly. "We will be happy as people who have mutual respect towards each other. The eldest son does not earn enough to pay the mortgage. It's a house under my name, so please take it back. Put the past behind you and start over. My husband came with my son to tell this. I've decided to live with Natalie. The man who will be her husband has already prepared a spacious room for Rachel. They bought a newly built family home for the 4 of us to live in. Now that I'm no longer a debtor, you and I have no relationship. Wishing you all the best. The house remains in my name, so any further discussion should take place formally." Afterwards, it was regrettable not to witness the disputes and the harsh words exchanged among the 3. The eldest son's wife, not wanting to deal with the complicated house, left, but not without taking the expensive accessories she had received from my husband and son. My husband and eldest son, realizing they could no longer live in the house, decided they couldn't live alone either and moved into a small apartment. Although I received a change of address notification, I said nothing. I always knew your worth. But that wife of his, with her misleading words and actions, wrecked our happy home and then ran away. When my husband said that, I couldn't stop laughing. Now you're blaming it on Lucy, huh? Think back to when we bought the house. Remind yourself that you are nothing more than a thoughtless and rude man with no value. Please know your place from now on. There were more words I wanted to say, but it felt like even a full day wouldn't be enough. So what about Jake? Out of my final affection as a mother, I asked my husband. He started debt restructuring. Seems like his workplace found out. He's devastated, saying he can't stay at the electronics store anymore. Perhaps thinking it would soften my stance, the husband kept glancing at me. Not out of affection or attachment, but probably calculating how he could use me again. Well, you two do your best. I filed for divorce. I don't want to be married, neither do you, so you're a stranger to me now. Remember how you used to wave that divorce petition with my name on it? Trying to intimidate me? Too bad. I've had it with me all along. I made good use of it. I laughed heartily at my now ex-husband. I felt I had given my all to this relationship. I lived intending to support them as a family. Now it's time to say goodbye to that meaningless life. I'll spend my life with the ones who matter to me. Fast forward 5 years. It's my retirement day at 65. Grandma, congratulations on your retirement. My now 10-year-old granddaughter greeted me when I returned home. Aunt Natalie and the others will be home soon. They just called. Congratulations on your retirement. The warm embrace of my granddaughter was comforting. I've rented out that house since. I don't know what became of the ex-husband and my son, who were miserably driven out. I have no desire to reach out to them. Now, I live with my daughter, her husband, and my granddaughter. My family consists of just these 4 people. If our family ever grows, it will probably be because of my daughter and her husband's child.
My name is Jennifer. I've been married to my husband for 8 years. My husband is a kind man who always cherishes me. He loves my cooking and enjoys whatever I make, saying it's delicious. Really, Jennifer, all the dishes you make are so delicious. It feels almost wasteful that I'm the only one enjoying them. Encouraged by my husband, I decided to open a diner. Customers who came to eat became regulars, and we got high ratings on review sites. Now, there is a line of people waiting outside of the diner during lunchtime. It's so busy every day that I couldn't manage without the help of part-time workers. So many customers came in today as well. It's all thanks to you for encouraging me. Thank you. Thanking my husband had become a daily routine. But then, one day, I got a call from a university student claiming to be my husband's mistress. Your husband got me pregnant. What? Your husband got me pregnant. When? When isn't the issue here? I'm going to give birth soon. Soon. That means it must have happened within the last 10 months. Could there be some mistake? Are you trying to dodge responsibility? Because of this, I had to drop out of university. That's because you didn't use contraception, right? I don't think it has anything to do with me. How can you say it's not your concern? It was your husband who did this. Then, why don't you speak directly to my husband? It's troublesome for me to deal with this. A wife should take responsibility for what her husband does. Is that so? Why are you laughing? Because my husband would never do such a thing. It must be a mistake. You think your husband would never do such a thing? That he's not that kind of person? But the fact is, I am pregnant. What are you going to do about it? What can I do about it? Give me $30,000. What? Why $3 million? For compensation. I had to quit university, so pay me $30,000. This is troubling. Are you really sure it's my husband? Yes. It's your husband. That's impossible. It is possible, that's why I'm calling you. It just doesn't seem possible. My husband, who is a very sincere person, and I first met at a favorite cafe. At first, we didn't even talk, but as we kept visiting, we started greeting each other and eventually had tea together. It took over a year just for that small progress. We enjoyed our tea time together, and it seemed like nothing more could happen between us. But unable to resist the attraction, I was the one who confessed. I like you. What if he dislikes me for this? What if he says he likes someone else? By revealing my feelings, I might lose the time we have now. These thoughts were swirling in my mind. Yet, I wanted to express my feelings. With sweaty palms and a desperate effort, the only words I managed to say were just that. However, when I confessed, it turned out that my husband felt the same way. I'm sorry. This must be bothersome, isn't it? But, because I like you. I just had to express my feelings. I remember feeling like I was about to cry. My eyes grew hot, and I regretted saying anything. His silence seemed to last forever. I thought, It's over, I should leave. I'm sorry. I stood up to leave when he spoke. Wait. Please wait. I was so happy, I didn't know how to respond. I feel the same way. My husband said that with a red face. He said his mind went blank, not knowing how to respond. He's pure, straightforward, yet shy. He told me how he had been struggling every day, unable to express his feelings of love. When I heard this, I was so happy. Tears I had been holding back overflowed, and I cried in front of him. It took a long time before he asked me to marry him. Yet, I believed in him, waiting for him to propose. His proposal was simple and warm. Would you marry me? He said in a faint, uncertain voice. I nodded slightly and answered. Yes. Our wedding was small, but when our life together started, I couldn't believe how happy we were. However, I've been alone for the past 5 years. My husband has been transferred, and as I was working too, I couldn't follow him. I was left alone at home, and the anxiety was immeasurable. Even though I used to live alone, it felt like I had never had such an experience, and unknown fears tormented me. How could he possibly have a mistress? Especially a university student much younger than him. I thought, it's absolutely impossible. My husband would never do such a thing. It's not possible. No, on the contrary, if it were possible, it might even be better. Maybe it would be better to have a fight over this. So, pay the $30,000. When the child is born, it will cost money. Yes, it will cost money. But my husband would never have a mistress. Why can you say that? All men are the same. Don't think your husband is the only decent one. I don't think he's particularly noble. But, he just couldn't do it. He couldn't do it? That's impossible. Your husband and I, we have that kind of relationship, you know? Still, I find it hard to believe. No matter how I think about it, I can't see you and my husband having such a relationship. Shut up. Whether you believe it or not, it's true. Pay the $30,000 quickly. I understand your point. Could you tell me your name first? Why do I need to tell you my name? If you're his mistress, I should be allowed to ask that much, right? Well, okay, I'm Daisy. So, Daisy, where did you meet my husband? It's sugar dating. Sugar dating? My husband couldn't possibly do such a thing. He's not the kind of person who could do that. Besides, while she was talking rapidly earlier, she hesitates when I ask questions. Could this be some kind of new scam? That suspicion arose in me. Yes. Surprised? We met through sugar dating, and we developed a love affair. We were attracted to each other and made a mistress agreement. We've been together for almost 2 years now. I see. Do you have any proof that your partner is my husband? Proof? Well, he gave me his address. That's strange. Normally, he wouldn't give out his address. He gave it to me. How about a phone number? Do you know my husband's cell phone number? If you're in a mistress relationship, you should know, right? Huh? I don't know his phone number. We have messenger accounts, we don't need that. Is that so? My husband hardly ever used messengers with me. He always said that phone calls were better because you can understand the other person's emotions through their tone and pauses, which you can't get from just text on messengers. What you're saying doesn't make much sense. Think what you want, that's up to you. The fact is the child in my belly. I can't believe that's a fact, that's why I'm asking. Enough already. I know your diner is thriving. You can easily pay $30,000, can't you? That's not the case. No matter how busy my small diner gets, the profits are slim. Yet, the woman on the phone is demanding payment. Thinking it would disrupt the business to continue this call, I said, "All right, I understand. I'm in the middle of business now, so let's meet and talk in detail later." Okay. You'll understand once you see my belly. I thought. My husband passed away 5 years ago? And she still says I'll understand, huh? After hanging up, I smiled at the part-time workers and reassured them that everything was okay. A few days later, on the diner's day off, I invited Jennifer. Hearing about this, the part-time workers, considering it a major issue for the store, came to the diner even on their day off. Truth be told, I felt somewhat relieved to have such strong allies by my side. Jennifer arrived, cradling her large belly, and sat down on a chair inside the diner. "Thank you for coming today." I gave her a smile, but it was merely a business smile. Internally, I was determined to expose this woman's true identity. She indeed looked young, and I could believe she was a university student. But her skilled makeup and neatly painted nails, and the jewelry hanging around her neck, seemed quite expensive. "Could you please tell me the details again?" The part-time workers sat a little distance away from our table, quietly watching us. "Who are those people?" "They came because they're worried about me." "What, a bunch of onlookers? That's pretty low." "They are my precious partners." "Don't use such language." "Humph, you need such a cheer squad to face your husband's mistress?" "How introverted are you?" "It's not like that." "Anyway, can you tell me once more how you met him? How did you connect despite such an age difference?" "I already told you, it's sugar dating." "You said you've been together for 2 years, right?" "Yes, that's right." "Then, can you show me proof that the child in your belly is my husband's?" "I'm telling you, isn't that enough?" "That's not enough as proof, is it?" "For example, if you had photos taken together, then it might be believable." "There's no such thing." "He said he didn't want to take photos." "That's strange." "My husband loved photos. He would always take pictures wherever we went. I have many photos taken with him, so it's unimaginable that he wouldn't take photos with someone he liked." "I don't know about that. He just didn't want to take them, that's all. If there are no photos, then there's no proof. Photos aren't everything." "Well, how about the documentation of pregnancy? If you're really pregnant, you should have one, right? Are you doubting me? Even with my belly this big?" "Yes, I don't want to doubt like this, but I can't be sure if your belly really means you're pregnant. I didn't bring those documentation. If that's the case, then it's questionable whether you're really pregnant, and there's no proof it's my husband's child. I can't believe you're his mistress either. It's like grasping at clouds, isn't it? Why is it turning out like this?" "I'm telling you it's the truth." Jennifer becomes furious, shouting angrily. The part-time workers are saying, "That's impossible. Jennifer's husband has a mistress? No way." Daisy, feeling overwhelmed by the numbers, continues to shout and vent her anger. "Then, would you mind looking at this?" Saying so, I took out my husband's smartphone. "This is my husband's smartphone." Why are you looking at your husband's phone? Isn't that an invasion of privacy?" "Maybe. But, looking at this will clear everything up. You say you met my husband through sugar dating, but you're a hostess at a cabaret club, aren't you?" How do you know that?" "This Messenger's account is yours, right?" "You can't tell from Messengers." "But this wallpaper, it's your face, right?" "You're beautifully made up, totally the look of a cabaret girl." That was a photo from a university party." "Oh, I see. It's the same makeup you have on now. I can't believe an amateur could do such beautiful makeup. It's really pretty. Is that so?" Daisy smiled, seemingly pleased. Any woman would be happy to be called beautiful. A natural reaction, I suppose. And you know, I read all the conversations in here. My husband only went to the cabaret club where you work once. You served him there. After that, you kept messaging him on Messengers, inviting him to the club. But he never responded to those invitations. He didn't want to exchange messages on Messengers because his wife would find out. That's why I wrote it like a typical hostess and customer. I'm his mistress, so I'd be considerate of that. Is that so? From what I see here, you seem pretty desperate. Trying hard to catch my husband's attention. But he wasn't interested, was he? So why would you become his mistress? That's what I'm telling you. I was being considerate, making sure his wife wouldn't find out. I wonder if a university student could be that considerate. I am that considerate. So, a person as considerate as you, why would you suddenly come forward with this story now? Because I got pregnant. You've been a mistress for 2 years. But this exchange is from over 5 years ago. How many years of a gap was there? No, different. We've been together for longer. It's just that we've been in a deeper relationship for 2 years. You should plan your lies more carefully, they're falling apart. By the way, this is an exchange with my husband's boss. My husband was known as a devoted husband at his company. Even for work-related gatherings, he didn't like going to cabaret clubs. He reluctantly went just once. That was the one time I mentioned earlier. After that, he was invited by colleagues but never went again. And his boss was saying, "You really are a devoted husband." So what? My husband didn't frequent places with women and never tried to contact women other than me. So the idea of him doing sugar dating is impossible. But it happened, so there's nothing I can do. Maybe he was tired of you? Here, it shows you persistently inviting him, and he rejects all of them. He's consulting his boss about this. Would someone who consults his boss about such things not notice you at all? You're just a hostess at a cabaret club, not his mistress. Maybe it was just a hostess and customer relationship? This is so annoying. Whether we met through sugar dating or at a cabaret club, it's the same. Right, the meeting isn't the issue. What puzzles me is how you knew our address and why you don't know the phone number. I was curious about that, but it's clear from this messenger's conversation. When my husband went to the cabaret club with his boss, he talked about me all the time. He said I run a diner that's doing well, even inviting them to come eat. But that wasn't just to you, it was to everyone there. You remembered the diner and decided to call, didn't you? Lies. How can you make up such a story? It's all speculation, isn't it? Still not admitting it. Maybe if you meet my husband, it will become clear. There's no need for that. Why not? If you meet my husband, everything will become clear, won't it? He wouldn't like it. If he saw me here, he'd ask why I came. If it turns into a scene, he'd be so pitiful. That's why I'm against it. Are you okay with putting him in a difficult position? If you really loved him, you couldn't do that. If that's really the case, I would feel sorry. But if he's cheating, it's necessary to make things clear. If it's really infidelity, I'm against it. But this is the only way, isn't it? There's no need for that. Why not? It would be better for you to clear things up, wouldn't it? Instead of that, pay me the $30,000 quickly. You keep talking about evidence, but more important than any evidence is taking responsibility for this child. I think it's fair to ask for $30,000 and then I'd leave him. Daisy's panic was evident, and then one of the part-timers, Ms. Peter, interjected. Something seems fishy. Why are you so hurried? And if you really loved him and wanted to have his child, you wouldn't think about taking money to leave him, right? Shut up. People think differently. Keep out of it. Are you really a university student? That seems suspicious too. Sure, there are university students who work as hostesses, but something about you seems off. What? I am a university student. I am really 21 years old. You are so rude. I'll sue you for defamation. Feel free to sue. But you might be the one who ends up being sued. Why? For fraud and defamation, maybe. What's this? The online reviews said the staff and manager were so nice, but that's totally a lie. You're so rude. Well, today isn't a business day. If you want the experience as per the reviews, Why don't you visit as a customer on a business day? Then you'll see it's as the reviews say. But I think it's too late for that. Everyone here is so rude. No wonder your husband cheated. Well, I wonder about that. I don't believe for a second that my husband cheated. You have his mistress right in front of you, and you still trust your husband? Are you stupid? No matter how much you shout, without evidence, what can I do? I can provide evidence, but you haven't shown a single piece to prove you're his mistress. How can I believe anything you say? Jennifer bit her lip in frustration, glaring at me, still unyielding in her attempt to get the $30,000. Even with all the evidence presented, she neither admits her foolishness nor apologizes. It seems I have no choice but to launch my final attack. I decided to drop the last bombshell. I guess I have no choice but to let you meet my husband. I didn't want to do this. I was thinking of letting it go if you admitted and apologized. But if you refuse to acknowledge it, I have no choice. What do you mean? Once I do this, you won't be able to make excuses anymore. Are you prepared for that? So, what are you going to do? Ms. Peter, could you please bring it here? Sure. Ms. Peter then went to the back and returned with a memorial tablet and a photo, placing them on the table. I looked straight at Jennifer. Huh? What are you doing with a memorial tablet? That's creepy. Don't you understand? This person is your supposed lover, right? What is this? This memorial tablet and this photo belong to the same person. And what does that have to do with your husband? Can't you see? This is my husband. Huh? My husband passed away 5 years ago. He was supposed to transfer for work, but I was working and couldn't go with him. Tired from his job, he met with an accident on his way home. Life is so fleeting, isn't it? Huh? Hey, if you're really carrying the child of Jennifer's husband, then you're saying your lover is a ghost. Maybe you should see a medium. You're carrying a ghost's child? That child might be cursed. The part-time workers are laughing, saying, "That's scary. I wish he could appear to me if such things were possible." But Daisy reacted differently. You're doing all this just to deny it? You're trying to convince me with some blurry photo and a memorial tablet of someone I don't know? It's unbelievable. Even with all the evidence presented, she still insists it's my husband's child. It's amazing. You don't even recognize the face of the person you claim to love. Do kids these days not remember their partner's face? Of course not. How can I tell anything from this blurry photo? You're just scared to bring your husband out because if he chose me over you, you'd hate it, right? But I already said I'd leave him if you pay me $30,000, so that should be enough. Enough already. Unable to hold back any longer, Ms. Peter shouted. Do you have any idea what Jennifer has been through these past 5 years? Losing her husband and enduring all that pain, and you come here trying to deceive and lie like this. There's a limit to lying. What lies? You're the one trying to deceive with this act. Deceiving? You're the fraudster here. I'm not committing fraud. You shouldn't say such things just because he's deceased. Defaming the dead can still lead to legal action. And will also sue you for fraud. Why are you saying that? There's no way you can defame someone who's dead. But you can. Oh, Miss Peter here is a local lawyer. A local lawyer? She handles small, local cases. She's the lawyer our diner has been using. Why is a lawyer even here? That's so unfair. Just as Daisy stood up, a cushion she had been using to fake her pregnancy fell off, rolling onto the floor. Everyone was stunned. I suspected the pregnancy might be a lie, but I was shocked to see it proven by a fallen cushion. Just as I thought. The pregnancy was a lie. No, it's not like that. To tell such a terrible lie about carrying my husband's child. While I was fuming at Daisy, Miss Peter took her bag and started checking inside it. This girl is 24, not 21. Such a big lie. So, the part about being a university student is also a lie? There are 24-year-olds in university. And there are university students who work at cabaret clubs too. You said that earlier. If you keep insisting, show us your student ID. You probably don't even have one. Why are you doing this? Lying about someone else's husband. What a foolish thing to do. As I shouted, Daisy started crying, claiming it was all true. But Miss Peter was not fooled by such tears. Crying like that is something you do to men, she said, laughing. Why did you do this? Using a deceased person for such a scheme is just despicable. It's not a lie. She continued wiping her tears with a handkerchief, but it didn't seem genuine. If you don't stop, I'll inform your parents and the police. You know what will happen if your parents find out, right? No, Miss Peter. I can't forgive her. She tried to tarnish my husband's reputation, no matter the reason. We're going to the police. No, please. I just wanted money. I wasn't really his mistress or pregnant. I just needed money, I had no choice. That's no excuse for what you did. I had mounting debts. I thought if I pretended to be pregnant, I could definitely get the money. Since he wouldn't be coming to the cabaret anyway, there would be no contact with him. I figured he wouldn't know if I deceived him. What kind of person are you? What were these debts for? Well, I wanted designer items. For such things? Yes, but when you work in a cabaret club, everyone has branded items. I didn't have any clients and I'm already 24. The other girls my age made fun of me. So, I thought if I wore branded items, I might be seen differently. It was just a little pretense. You tarnished my husband's honor just for that? Even after 5 years of his passing, you defame him now. But it's not right after his death, so it's better, right? Think of it that way. What are you saying? No, this is unacceptable. We're taking you to the police. And we'll inform your parents too, so be prepared. Please stop, stop. No matter how much she pleaded, my decision didn't change. Eventually, Daisy was charged with defamation and fraud and received a prison sentence. As a result, she was fired from the cabaret club. Her parents, who visited her in prison, were furious and made her cry after learning about her behavior and employment at the cabaret club, which they had been unaware of. They were shocked by their daughter's actions and lifestyle. When asked by her parents why she needed the money, Daisy couldn't admit it was for designer items and lied about wanting to study abroad, trying to deceive them further. However, I informed her parents of the entire truth. This led to even more anger from her parents, who stopped visiting her in prison until her release. Years later, after being released from prison, Daisy considered returning to the neon-lit world of nightclubs. But as she exited the prison gates, her parents were waiting for her. Excited about returning to normal life and expecting to be treated to a nice meal, Daisy soon realized her parents weren't so lenient. Deeply regretting their parenting, they decided to take her to live with her strict grandmother in the mountains. The grandmother's place, without electricity and entertainment, was a tougher environment than prison for the extravagant Daisy. Seeing Daisy's dejected state, her grandmother vowed to straighten her out, chasing her around with a stick in hand. As for me, the diner continued to thrive, and I felt grateful, believing my husband was watching over us. The part-time staff and I keep serving delicious meals every day.
Pay back everything, okay? Well, if you do that, you'll be begging for welfare in the near future. Be prepared because I'll also demand a share of the assets. I clenched my fist tightly. But I desperately held back my anger and said with a smile, "Got it. Indeed, such matters do require settlement, right? Then, please make sure to accurately calculate the exact amount of money I've used, okay?" Thus, I handed over my address and quickly returned home. Michael might have thought I ran away seeing me like that, but I wasn't running away. When Michael contacts me again, I'll put an end to everything. I had made up my mind. That day came much sooner than expected. 3 days after meeting Michael again, Michael immediately bombarded me with calls. However, upon answering, Michael just repeated the same words over and over. Realizing that nothing would be resolved unless we met and talked, we met once more. That's when Michael said, "Why? Why are you living in such a huge house?" The panic over the phone was because of my house. Standing in front of my luxurious mansion, Michael truly lost his mind. My name is Emily. Currently, I am a 40-year-old housewife. I met my husband, Michael, 6 years ago. Introduced by the president of the company I was working for at the time. The president likes fishing. One day, he went fishing and happened to meet Michael, who had come with a friend. Michael wasn't interested in fishing, so he ended up talking with the president, who had come alone, out of boredom. Learning that he was single, the president thought he might be a good match for me. The reason being, I had lost my parents early on and was completely alone. Feeling sorry for me, the president, who always looked out for me, thought that Michael and I could start a family together. I could not ignore the president's kindness, and when we met, for some reason, he took a liking to me. Thus, we started dating and eventually got married. Now, I have quit my job and become a full-time housewife. Michael was a very kind person. My in-laws were wonderful people, and they welcomed me as if I'm their real daughter. And for me, who had lost my parents, they were like real parents. Michael's home was a 2-family house. The in-laws had built it new when they got married. And one part of the house had been unused since the death of Michael's grandparents. So Michael and I started living there. Although we lived separately, we often saw each other and had a good relationship with the in-laws. However, there was always one discomfort I felt about Michael and his parents' relationship. The fact was, a few years ago, Michael's father became ill and was living in a wheelchair. Michael seemed to show no concern for him at all. For instance, on the day we first met, when we arrived at the designated restaurant, a man in a wheelchair was struggling to overcome a step. I helped him over it. Later, I found out that the man was Michael's father. At that time, Michael's mother had asked Michael to stay with his father while she went to the restroom. Despite being asked, Michael left his father alone and went to the restroom himself. Michael, "I told you to stay with your father, didn't I?" Though his mother said that, there was no sign of regret from Michael. I felt a moment of discomfort towards him, but being praised, "Indeed, Emily is a wonderful woman. Even without knowing he was my father, you helped him," made me feel good. And I momentarily forgot the discomfort I had felt. First and foremost, I was not informed beforehand that Michael's father was in a wheelchair. Nor did I understand the choice of a restaurant with many steps. During a meal with 4 of us the other day, when he suddenly suggested, "Why not try climbing mountain?" I was utterly taken aback. In any case, I never felt any consideration from Michael towards his father. Michael, don't you think it's insensitive to suggest such things when your father has difficulty walking? I confronted Michael on the evening he proposed climbing mountain. However, he just laughed. "It's impossible for Dad. I know that. It's fine if he doesn't come." Even if he doesn't come, leaving him alone at home is not an option. Proposing a trip he can't even join is just too much. Then, "Emily, you can stay and look after him." I was taken aback by his words. No matter what I said, it never seemed to affect Michael. Every time Michael spoke, I felt increasingly sorry towards his father. However, the story didn't end there. Unbelievably, forgetting such a conversation, One day Michael said he was going on a trip with his mother, just the two of them. With Emily here, Dad will be fine, right? He said before leaving. And indeed, he went away with his mother. His mother, thinking I had agreed, said with a smile, "Emily, please contact us if anything happens. Thank you for this time." I couldn't say anything and silently saw them off. Then apologized to Michael's father for Michael's selfish actions. "Thank you for always caring. It's my fault for being sick, you don't have to worry, Emily." He said this with a smile. His smile brought me some relief, but I waited for Michael's return with unresolved feelings. After that, there were lunches and dinners. Regardless of day trips or overnight stays. Michael planned many trips and went just with his mother. But I always feel bad for Emily. She would say, but Michael responded kindly to such remarks from her. "You're usually taking care of him, right? It's fine once in a while." Emily says it's okay. Of course, I never said such a thing, but I couldn't deny it. Every time they went out, I was left to look after his father and take on his care. I felt sorry for his father, and he seemed to feel sorry for me too. Then, 2 years later, his father finally passed away. At the funeral, filled with sorrow, I heard Michael say something unbelievable. "Finally we are freed. A wheelchair-bound old man is nothing but a burden." Well, but it was good that someone appeared to take on that burden, so I didn't have to do anything. Seems like Mom was saved thanks to her. Being there was better than not at all. I trembled with anger. To think of his kind father as a burden? Someone to bear it? That was the moment I finally understood what Michael thought of me. He must have had a great time traveling with his beloved mother, ignoring the feelings of his father and me. Even though I wanted children, he would say, I still want it to be just the two of us. But there was hardly any time it was just the two of us. It must have been an excuse. Thinking that caring would be impossible if I were pregnant or had a child. I cried silently, feeling frustrated and pitiful, but it was a funeral. Thankfully, everyone let me be. Of course, his mother didn't mean any of this. At the funeral, his mother's face looked genuinely sad, not like an act. I understand she was happy to be invited by Michael, and she always brought me souvenirs. Of course, my mother-in-law also needs to reflect on her actions. But it seems she regrets them since my father-in-law passed away. However, if Michael had been more thoughtful, he wouldn't have dragged my mother-in-law into such a whirlpool of regret. Ultimately, believing he is the root cause of everything made him even more unforgivable. Since then, we have become a couple in name only. We spoke in front of my mother-in-law so as not to worry her. But when it was just the two of us, we might as well have been heir to each other. Eventually, I stopped caring whether Michael was home or not. After all, he was probably out with my mother-in-law. And now that my father-in-law was gone, there was nothing I could say about it. However, there was a day when Michael was gone, but my mother-in-law was at home. Huh? Mother-in-law? You're not with Michael today? At those words, my mother-in-law tilted her head. What do you mean? Since his father passed away, we haven't gone out together. I've made it a point to say no. What? I told him to cherish you more than me. Michael agreed and said he would be a dutiful husband. I was shocked by her words. Far from being a dutiful husband, we didn't even talk. And yet he had been trying to appear good in front of my mother-in-law by saying such things. I said, I'm sorry to have kept silent, mother-in-law, but there is no love between us anymore. The idea of him being a dutiful husband is ridiculous. There's no way Michael would do such a thing. That's so. Clearly shocked by the truth, my mother-in-law seemed unable to bear it any longer. Even pretending to be happy was a pain. But then, where is Michael going? Every day, every night. He hardly seems to be at home. Indeed. I always thought he was with you. We looked at each other. Now that we realized we both thought he was with the other. The question arose, who is Michael actually going out with and where? That night, when Michael returned late, I confronted him. You're late. Where have you been until this time? Michael paused for a moment, seemingly not expecting to be addressed when it was just the two of us. Dinner, with Mom. Michael mumbled his reply. A clear lie. If he was with my mother-in-law, I wouldn't have said anything. Those words must have come from understanding the situation. But today is an exception. Wasn't your mother-in-law at home? Which mother are you dining with? What's with that tone? You sound sarcastic. Sarcastic? I think the one who lied should be more concerned. I retorted to Michael. Michael, sighing deeply, said to me. Anywhere is fine, isn't it? Just for a rare day off. A rare day off? You hardly come home after work, and on your days off, you're out playing. Ever since your father was alive, you've pushed the caregiving onto me. I couldn't help but raise my voice in anger. It seems Michael has his thoughts on my words. But perhaps he cannot retort because they are true. In desperation, Michael also raised his voice. Shut up. Can't you see I kept you here because my mom likes you? Even though you're no longer needed? If you're going to complain so much, just leave. Such harsh words. But I managed to suppress my anger. Thinking I had nothing to say, Michael smugly said. It's going to be tough, huh? If I left you, a housewife and a loner, you would have nowhere to go, right? But you defied me. I have no reason to support you anymore. The barrage of verbal abuse almost broke me. I do not regret speaking up against Michael. I did not expect him to understand. But to be treated this way is unjust. If you're leaving, that's perfect. There's a woman who wants to marry me. I won't have any trouble even if a woman like you is gone. Are you saying you've been cheating? I couldn't help but respond to those words. Cheating? Don't make me laugh. But you just said there's a woman who wants to marry you. Yeah, I'm serious. It's a good opportunity, so I'll have you leave and remarry. And so, we ended up divorcing. The only one who was always crying and apologizing was my mother-in-law. Her actions making my eyes tear up. From meeting at 35 to divorcing at 40, I truly wasted precious time. But I decided to start a new life and do my best. A year after the divorce, I finally adjusted to my new life and regained peace. The president of my previous company rehired me, and work was going smoothly. One day, on my way back from work, I stopped by the supermarket. Tired, I reached for a half-priced meal. Then, spotting my favorite cheesecake in the clearance section and stopping, I heard a familiar voice. Thought it was some lowly old woman. I looked up at the voice. It was Michael. Michael shamelessly peeked into my basket and laughed. Lonely, huh? A half-priced meal? What about it? It's none of your business. As I took the cheesecake and started to leave, Michael said. Oh, right. You used Dad's savings, didn't you? Your father's savings? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie. You bought things like diapers when you were caring for him, right? I was taken aback by his words. Of course. And I had permission from his parents for that. Despite being asked to purchase this earlier. There's no reason for me to be told such things by Michael now. That is. I tried to retort, but Michael raised the corners of his mouth in triumph. Pay back the full amount, okay? Well, if you do that, you'll be begging for welfare in the near future. I'll also demand a division of property, so be prepared. I clenched my fist tightly. However, I desperately suppressed my anger and said with a smile, "Understood." Indeed, such matters do need to be settled, don't they? Then, please make sure to check the exact amount I spent, okay? Putting on a brave front. Michael laughed. But I did not take his bait and quickly took out a memo from my bag to write down my address. Also, I'm living here now. I'm sure we'll need to talk and you can call me later. After saying that hurriedly, I handed over the address and quickly went home. Michael might have thought I was running away, but I wasn't. When Michael contacts me next time, I will end everything. I had made up my mind. It was just 3 days after our reunion. I was at work. I noticed that Michael had called me numerous times. With so many calls, something must have happened. Just as I thought that, another call came in. I hurriedly answered the phone, thinking that perhaps something had happened to my mother-in-law. "Hello? What's up?" On the other end of the phone, Michael shouted loudly, "What's going on?" "I'm in front of your house right now, what the hell is going on?" I didn't understand what he meant. But Michael was muttering something frantically, almost in a half-crazed manner. I even felt madness in Michael, but again, I asked calmly, "You're in front of my house?" "I'm not home for work right now." "Are you talking about a discussion?" "I don't care about the discussion." "What are you talking about?" We were completely talking past each other. I sighed deeply. At least it seemed like nothing had happened to my mother-in-law. "It's not working over the phone, let's meet and talk." "I'll be home in 3 hours." I looked at the clock and said that, then hung up the phone. Michael called several more times after that, but I ignored all of them. After work, I hurried home, and when I was about to reach my house, I saw Michael. "Have you been here the whole time?" As if noticing me, Michael approached me with a furious look and raised his voice. "What the hell is this?" "So, what is it?" "I can't understand it without a subject." Hearing my words, Michael pointed at my house and opened his mouth again. "Why are you living in such a nice house?" Michael said this, emphasizing the end of his sentence and spitting as he spoke. I instinctively recoiled. "Did you run off with Dad's inheritance?" "What are you talking about?" "That's not possible." Michael was furious with me, but I simply brushed it off. "It's my parents' money." But he seemed not to be convinced. "Your parents? Weren't they long gone?" "Are you saying you lied?" "Calm down a bit, will you?" "Listen, this house was built with the real estate income inherited from my parents. Stealing money from your parents is out of the question." Finally, it seemed Michael could grasp a bit of what I was saying and regained his composure. "Yes. My parents had indeed passed away early. However, coming from a family that originally owned a lot of real estate, I, being an only child, inherited everything after their death. The real estate income alone amounts to a massive annual sum of $3 million. Without doing anything, money keeps coming in, totaling my assets to tens millions of dollars. Of course, I could live comfortably without working. But what I desired was something money couldn't buy, the warmth of human relationships. Working was more about experiencing the warmth of sharing lunches with colleagues, or supporting each other through mistakes than the income. Being completely alone, if I distanced myself from society just because I had money, I would end up truly alone. During my marriage and time as a homemaker, I was happy to feel the warm parental love of my in-laws. Due to the divorce, I returned to work to maintain my social connections. I explained this to Michael and then added, "But if I mentioned having money, everyone would come to me for it." "Michael, you liked me without knowing I was such a wealthy person." and that made me genuinely happy. Well, probably because you saw me as a caregiver. That's. After hearing my story, Michael seemed to have calmed down. At the same time, he appeared to regret kicking me out. Though he tried to remain calm, his face was pale, and his voice trembled. But it wasn't that anyone would do. Because you seemed kind, I thought I could leave my father in peace. He made a plausible excuse and nodded as if convincing himself. By the way, I had no idea you had so much money. You should have told me. Tell you, and then what? No, I mean, like managing it or something. Michael desperately seemed to want to get involved with the fortune, but it was too late. I smirked and said, if we had a child, they would have been the heir. Too bad, huh? Michael's regret seemed to deepen at those words, but he still had no reply. To rub salt in the wound, I said, it's late today, can we postpone our discussion? Was it about settling the caregiving expenses during our marriage? Oh. Yeah, that's right. We should settle that properly. Michael, tormented by regret, seemed to find hope in my words and perked up. However, he was about to be thrown back into hell the next moment. I'm so relieved. I paid quite a bit for your father's hospital bills. If I could get reimbursed, that would help a lot. Huh? Michael was momentarily stunned and turned even paler. While watching his reaction, I said rapidly, let's see, the hospital bills I covered over 3 years amounted to $10,200. Well, since I did it voluntarily, let's just say $10,000. And then, there was the diaper money from your father's savings that I used, wasn't it? About $1,000, right? So, if you just pay me $9,000 after offsetting, that should do. Finally, I almost laughed at Michael, who had nothing to say. The in-laws said during the caregiving, we can't let you pay for the hospital bills alone, that's too much. I never intended to make them pay. But I knew paying for everything would make my father-in-law feel even more indebted. So, I had them pay just for the diapers from the savings. And he didn't always use diapers. With assistance, my father-in-law could use the toilet too. Despite the diaper cost not being significantly high. Michael's pettiness and nitpicking like this led to the current situation. And about the property division? I'm not sure what property you're talking about. But if anyone should receive anything, it's probably me, the one who was cheated on, right? These words seemed to deliver the final blow, and Michael collapsed on the spot. I'm sorry. Then, he prostrated himself on the ground, but such an act held no value. If you have something to say, we can discuss it at our next meeting. With that, I left Michael crawling on the ground and returned alone to my large mansion. A few days later, I contacted a lawyer. I doubted Michael would cling anymore, but just to be sure. I wanted to sever ties with him completely. The lawyer listened to my story and acted immediately. When I visited Michael's house after a long time, a young woman came out. Who are you? Is Michael here? I'm his ex-wife. Hearing this, she looked at me with disdain before going back inside. Michael came out to replace her. Oh, good. You're here. I couldn't reach you by phone. So I decided to come directly to your house for a discussion, just like you did. As I said this, Michael started to fidget. So, I already apologized, didn't I? What value does your apology have? Weren't you the one who contacted me about settling up? It would be awkward if the neighbors heard us, so let's go inside, shall we? Resigned, Michael moved aside and let me into the house. However, I was shocked upon entering the house for the first time in a year. What is this? The hallway looked as if it hadn't been cleaned for days, with visible footprints on the dusty floor. Moreover, used cardboard boxes were left in the already narrow hallway. Peering cautiously into the living room, the young woman from before was lounging on the sofa, glued to her smartphone, surrounded by scattered laundry. Michael hurriedly closed the living room door, trying not to let me see. Lamey is. Since my wife is here, is it okay if we talk here? It seemed the young woman was Lamey, his new wife. Michael guided me to the entrance and suggested we talk there. I sighed at his words, accepting the situation for what it was. What's with this mess, anyway? I couldn't help but voice my concern. Michael sheepishly smiled and said, "It just so happens we haven't cleaned." But it looked more like a chronic neglect than a one-time oversight. I had many thoughts, but decided not to delve too deeply. Getting involved was the last thing I wanted. The lawyer then meticulously compiled the discussed details into a document. The settlement included $9,000 I spent and $20,000 for the property division due to Michael's infidelity, totaling $29,000. Michael, as pale as before, begged for forgiveness on his knees. "There's no way I can forgive you," I retorted. During this exchange, Lamey peeked out from the living room. "What is going on?" What does she want?" Things became complicated. I thought so, but realized that if I were to receive the property division, she would not be irrelevant to the situation. The lawyer explained on my behalf to her. Lamey, who had been silently listening to the lawyer's explanation, raised her voice in disbelief once everything was explained. What a pathetic man for being 41. "You caused trouble, so just pay up." But. To my surprise, Lamey made a very valid point. "I'm truly sorry for the inconvenience. Had I known he was married, I never would have caused such trouble." Then, she apologized to me deeply. The lawyer and I exchanged glances, wondering what was happening. You didn't know Mr. Michael was married?" "Of course not." I was deceived. It turns out Michael had been dating 20-year-old Lamey under false pretenses, even lying about his age as 35. Lamey said she became suspicious of women's items in the house when she first came after I left, but was misled into believing they belonged to his mother. However, a few months ago, she learned from neighbors that she was indeed the second wife. Unable to forgive the deceit, she asked for a divorce. But Michael wouldn't accept, leading her to abandon household chores. "It's my fault for being deceived," Lamey said, glaring at Michael, who just smirked. I couldn't help but feel sympathy for her youth. "Can't we do something for her?" "I'll pay for her," I asked the lawyer. "What?" "That's none of your business." "What are you talking about?" Michael, who had been smirking, suddenly started to panic. "It's not unrelated. I lost 5 years of my life from 35 to 40. Do you understand how important those years were to me, a woman without children? She's still young. I don't want her to live a life like mine." My passion seemed to widen Lamey's eyes a bit. Perhaps her harsh demeanor was due to despair in her life. "Understood. The rest is up to Ms. Lamey." The lawyer then looked at her, and she, mustering her voice, whispered, "I want a divorce." Michael collapsed in despair at her words. He had claimed to be serious about her. If he truly was, he should have been honest with her from the start. His mind was likely filled with marrying her and ousting me. Typical of self-centered Michael's behavior. Is someone there? Just as things seemed to be settling, a figure appeared from the back of the house. Mother-in-law. Emily? Seeing me after just a year. The mother-in-law appeared significantly thinner. and staggered toward me before sitting down in front of me. Michael really did something terrible. I can't thank you enough for all you've done for us. She repeated words similar to those she said when I left a year ago and began to cry. I fought back tears and asked about her well-being. How have you been? You seem to have lost a lot of weight. Yes. We've been running out of money. Lately, we haven't been able to eat properly. What? About a month ago, the cash card went missing. And we don't have much money left. Glaring at Michael, who was in a daze after being abandoned by Lamie. My stare made him panic. His reaction made it clear he was involved in this. What is this all about? At my shout, Michael flinched. It was becoming clear to me. Michael must have rummaged through his mother's cash card, suspecting the balance to be lower than he imagined, and jumped to the conclusion that I had embezzled it. That's why he brought up the property division when we met by chance. Never mind. I don't want to hear your excuses. Listening to Michael wouldn't quell my anger. Mother-in-law, would you like to live with me? Hey, what are you saying? Ignoring Michael, I continued to speak to the mother-in-law. In that case, how about going through the adoption process? The lawyer immediately offered advice. I was all for it. The mother-in-law, with tears in her eyes, asked me again, "Are you sure?" Of course. I answered with a smile. Hey, Mom. Don't be deceived by her. You have a son, remember? However, Michael was desperate not to lose his mother. The mother-in-law said, Michael is an important son to me. But Emily was like a daughter to me. I still can't forgive you for driving her away. Tearing up, the mother-in-law slowly stood up. I'll just go get my things. Then she disappeared back into the house. Leaving Michael dazed at the entrance, the lawyer, the mother-in-law, Lamie, and I left the house. Mother-in-law, please watch your step, I said, taking her hand, and Michael was left speechless. Likely, he had never shown such consideration. Lamie eventually divorced Michael, as informed by the lawyer, who also said Michael had been sued for property division. She offered to pay my lawyer's fees with that division, but I refused. Young as she is, Lamie could surely use the money better for herself. Michael, burdened with paying property division to both of us, couldn't even afford a loan with his salary. I conceded to accept my share in installments, intending to give it to the mother-in-law. Michael would now lead a lonely life, burdened with payments. Perhaps it's best that he focuses solely on working hard. After discussions, the mother-in-law and I went through with an adoption process, giving her a new home and happiness. I'm so glad to have met you, Emily. The mother-in-law's gratitude, ironically thanks to Michael, made me vow to do more good. I decided to use most of my assets to support orphans and young people despairing of life, sharing the happiness I've found in believing that brighter days always come for those who keep living.